The metallic glint in my headlights wasn't from wildlife. It was from military-grade spike strips strategically placed across my private driveway, ready to shred my tires and probably end my life, given the steep ravine that bordered the mountain road. I slammed my brakes, the car skidding to within inches of what I instantly recognized as Mark IV mobile vehicle deterrents, the same ones I'd seen deployed in classified operations during my time with military intelligence. If you want to know how my peaceful mountain retreat turned into a war zone, and why I'm now in a deadly game of cat and mouse with an HOA that's definitely not what it seems, hit subscribe. Trust me, this goes deeper than property disputes. The dashboard clock read 3:17 a.m. as I sat there, heart pounding, staring at the sharp metal teeth that would have shredded my tires, and probably sent me plunging down the 100-foot ravine to my right. After 15 years in military intelligence, I knew professional equipment when I saw it. These weren't some hardware store spike strips. They were military grade, designed to stop vehicles at checkpoints and high-security facilities. I bought this property precisely because it was private, secluded, away from the shadows of my past. The winding driveway snaked up a forested hillside, protected by security gates and cameras. No HOA contract, no neighbors for miles, or so I thought. I needed isolation not just for peace, but for protection. Some of the things I'd seen, the information I still carried. Let's just say there are people who would go to extreme lengths to access what I know. Killing the headlights, I stepped out into the mountain darkness. The October air bit through my jacket as I crouched to examine the strips. They were anchored deep into the asphalt with industrial-grade bolts. This wasn't a quick setup. Someone had taken their time, worked with precision, but how had they gotten past my security system? A twig snapped in the darkness. I dropped to a crouch, my hand instinctively reaching for the Glock at my hip. The dense pines bordering my driveway suddenly felt less like privacy and more like cover for watching eyes. Years of training kicked in as I scanned the tree line, looking for the telltale signs of surveillance. That's when I saw it, a faint red LED blinking in the branches. Not just one, but several, forming a perimeter. Someone had been watching me, studying my routines. This wasn't random. The crunch of tires on gravel echoed from below. Headlights swept a curve. Heading up my driveway, I melted into the shadows, using the darkness as cover. A black SUV with tinted windows rolled to a stop just before the spike strips. The driver's door opened and a woman stepped out. Even in the dim light, I recognized Victoria Pierce, president of the Mountain Pines HOA, the same HOA that had been trying to claim jurisdiction over my property for months. She moved with military precision, her expensive suit failing to hide the bearing of someone with tactical training. This was no ordinary HOA president. "Mr. Chun," she called out, her voice carrying in the still night air. "I know you're there. Consider this a friendly warning. The HOA has claimed emergency jurisdiction over this access road. Remove our security measures again, and we'll be forced to take more decisive action." I remained silent, watching as she surveyed the area. Her hand rested casually near her hip, where a concealed holster would sit. "You can't hide forever, Marcus," she continued. "What's buried on your property, it doesn't belong to you. Make this easy on yourself. Sell to us now, and we can all walk away." Buried on my property? I'd only started renovations last week, breaking ground for a new security fence. Had I accidentally uncovered something? Something worth killing for? Victoria waited another moment, then returned to her SUV. As she drove away, I could hear her speaking into a radio. Target is non-compliant. Initiate phase 2. Standing in the darkness, staring at the spike strips that would have killed me, I knew this was just the beginning. The HOA wasn't after my property. They were after something beneath it, and they were willing to kill to get it. What I didn't know then was that removing those spike strips would trigger a chain of events that would force me to confront not only the HOA, but also the darkest secrets from my past. Secrets that should have stayed buried. I spent the next morning in my study, surrounded by property records and satellite maps. Something Victoria said kept echoing in my mind. What's buried on your property? The renovation plans for my security fence lay spread across my desk, the proposed dig sites marked in red. I needed answers before breaking more ground. A sharp knock at my door interrupted my research. Through the security feed, I saw Sarah Torres, the HOA's former secretary who quit last month, standing on my porch, nervously glancing over her shoulder. I'd met her once before, when she tried to warn me about irregularities in the HOA's operations. Back then, I dismissed her concerns. Now, I wasn't so sure. They're not who they say they are, Sarah blurted out as soon as I opened the door. Her hands trembled as she thrust a manila envelope at me. Victoria Pierce? She's ex-Zenith Security. Most of the HOA board are. They're using the association as a front. Zenith Security. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd encountered them during my final mission, a private military contractor known for black ops and corporate espionage, the kind of outfit that made problems disappear. How do you know this? I asked, ushering her inside while scanning the tree for surveillance. I processed their paperwork, saw things I shouldn't have. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. Last week, they received a massive wire transfer from an offshore account. The next day, they filed emergency claims on all the private roads in the area, including yours. Then I found this in Victoria's office. She pulled a faded document from the envelope, a military map from the 1960s. My property was marked with a symbol I recognized from my intelligence days, a classified underground facility. Before I could process this revelation, my security system chimed. 3 black SUVs were approaching the gate. Through the cameras, I could see men in tactical gear, carrying what looked like building inspection equipment. But I'd been in this game too long to be fooled. Those cases typically held disassembled weapons. Mr. Chun? Victoria's voice crackled through the intercom. We have a court order to inspect your property for unauthorized structures. Open the gate, or we'll be forced to enter by other means. Sarah's face went pale. They're here for the bunker. They'll kill us both. I led her to my panic room, then grabbed my go bag from the closet, cash, weapons, and everything I needed to disappear. Old habits die hard. As I reached for my satellite phone, the power cut out. They were making their move. The sound of metal grinding against metal told me they were breaching the gate. I had minutes, maybe less. I needed to get to my garage's hidden exit, but first, I had to know what was in that bunker. If Zenith Security wanted it this badly, it had to be significant. I pulled up the renovation plans again, overlaying them with the military map. The proposed fence line crossed directly over the bunker's marked location. We'd already broken ground there yesterday. The security feed on my backup system showed the tactical team spreading out around my house. Victoria led them, all pretense of being an HOA president gone. She moved like the trained operative she was, hand signals coordinating her team's movements. A metallic screech echoed through the house. They'd breached the front door. I grabbed Sarah's arm and moved toward the garage, but she pulled away. There's something else you need to know, she whispered urgently. The previous owner of this house, he didn't just disappear. I found records. Victoria had meetings with him right before he vanished. They wanted to buy his property too, but he refused after finding something during his own renovations. Footsteps thundered through my house. We were out of time. The bunker, Sarah continued, her voice shaking. It's not just a Cold War relic. Whatever's down there, it's still active, still important enough to kill for. The garage door exploded inward. Through the smoke, I could see Victoria leading her team, all pretense abandoned as they raised their weapons. Security inspection's over, Mr. Chun, she called out, her voice cold. Now! We do this the hard way. I grabbed Sarah and Dove behind my workbench as the first shots rang out. The situation had just gone from property dispute to survival. But Victoria had made one crucial mistake. She brought the fight to my home, where every wall, every corner, held surprises she wasn't prepared for. What I didn't know then was that the real shock wasn't a firefight erupting in my garage. It was what lay beneath our feet, silently counting down to something that would change everything. The maintenance tunnel beneath my garage was a tight fit, but it kept Sarah and me ahead of Victoria's team, at least temporarily. As we moved deeper underground, the gunfire above became muffled, replaced by the hollow echo of our footsteps against concrete. The beam of my tactical flashlight revealed Cold War-era markings on the walls, confirmation that this was more than just a fallout shelter. "They're not just after the bunker," Sarah whispered as we navigated the narrow passage. 2 days ago, I overheard Victoria on an encrypted call. Something about Project Oracle being reactivated. Whatever's down here, it's still operational. My blood ran cold. Project Oracle. I hadn't heard that name in years. Back in my final days with military intelligence, there were whispers about a classified predictive AI system buried in decommissioned bunkers across the country. A system so powerful it could anticipate global events, but so dangerous it had to be shut down. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber. My flashlight beam revealed rows of ancient computers, their surfaces thick with dust. But something wasn't right. There were fresh footprints in the dust, and some of the equipment showed signs of recent use. "Look," Sarah pointed to a modern terminal, its screen glowing faintly in the darkness. "They've been down here, accessing something." I approached the terminal cautiously. The screen displayed lines of code I recognized. Quantum encryption protocols, the kind used for top-secret military communications. But these were active, processing data in real time. Project Oracle wasn't shut down, I muttered, pieces clicking into place. It was compartmentalized, hidden in plain sight, and this bunker is one of its nodes. The overhead lights suddenly hummed to life. Victoria's voice echoed through the chamber. "Impressive, Mr. Chun. You're as good as your file suggested." We spun around. Victoria stood in the tunnel entrance, flanked by 4 operators. Their weapons were raised, but she held up a hand, keeping them from firing. "Did you really think we wouldn't have biometric sensors down here?" She smiled coldly. "We've been tracking your movement since you entered the tunnel. This is about more than real estate, isn't it?" I kept my voice steady, buying time as I assessed our options. Project Oracle, it's predicting something. Something big. Victoria's smile faded. 3 days ago, Oracle started generating predictions about a critical national security event, something that could reshape the global order. But the data is fragmented across multiple nodes. We need this facility's processing power to complete the analysis. And the previous owner, Sarah's voice trembled. Did he discover this too? He became uncooperative. Victoria's hand rested on her sidearm. "Just like you're both becoming." I noticed something behind Victoria's team, a faint shimmer in the air near an old ventilation shaft. The bunker's ancient cooling system was still active, creating a thermal barrier that would disrupt their infrared sensors. You know what's funny about predictive systems? I took a small step backward, positioning myself. They can't account for human chaos. I threw my flashlight at the nearest operator. In the same motion, I tackled Sarah behind a bank of computers as gunfire erupted. The shots went wide. The thermal barrier was disrupting their targeting systems just as I'd hoped. I pulled a flashbang from my belt, a parting gift from my military days, and rolled it toward Victoria's team. The blast in the confined space was disorienting, giving us the opening we needed. The ventilation shaft. I shouted to Sarah. "It leads to the surface." We ran as Victoria's team recovered, their confused shots sparking off ancient equipment. Sarah reached the shaft first, pulling herself up. I provided covering fire with my backup pistol, forcing them to take cover. But as I turned to follow Sarah, Victoria's voice cut through the chaos. "The predictions, Chun, they're about you. Whatever's coming, you're at the center of it." A bullet grazed my arm as I pulled myself into the shaft. Victoria's words echoed in my mind as we climbed toward the surface. What had Oracle seen? What role did I play in whatever was coming? We emerged in the woods behind my property, just as explosion rocked the ground. Victoria's team blasting through the bunker's security doors. But they were too late. We were already moving through the forest, and I had something they didn't. A data drive I had managed to grab from the terminal, containing a fragment of Oracle's predictions. As we ran, I realized this wasn't just about property rights anymore. This was about the future itself. And somehow, I was the key to it all. The real question was, what exactly had Oracle predicted, and why was I at the center of it? What I didn't know then was that the answers would be far more terrifying than the questions. The data drive revealed Oracle's prediction in stark, terrifying detail. In exactly 48 hours, a quantum computing breakthrough would make every encryption system on Earth obsolete. Global chaos would follow, unless someone with my unique expertise could prevent it. No wonder Zenith wanted this facility. No wonder Victoria was willing to kill for it. I sat in my hidden mountain cabin, watching Victoria's team through my drone feed as they tore my property apart searching for us. Sarah worked feverishly on a laptop, helping me decrypt Oracle's files. The AI hadn't just predicted the encryption collapse. It had outlined a solution that required both Oracle's processing power and the classified knowledge locked in my head. "They've called in reinforcements," Sarah warned, pointing to the thermal imagery showing more vehicles arriving. "And look at this. Victoria's on a call with someone. Someone important." I enhanced the audio feed. Victoria's voice crackled through. "Chen knows. He has the data. If we don't secure him and that bunker in the next 12 hours, everything fails. Send in the wet team. They're not trying to catch us anymore," I said grimly. "They're going to kill us and take the data. Traditional negotiations are over." Sarah's fingers flew over the keyboard. "The HOA's emergency meeting is in 2 hours. Every board member, all Zenith operatives, will be there. It might be our only chance to end this." I studied the tactical map on my screen. She was right. We'd never get a better opportunity. But what I was planning wasn't just risky. It would expose decades of classified operations. Once this went public, there would be no going back. "Call your contact at the FBI," I told Sarah. "Tell them to be ready, but not to move until I give the signal. And Sarah, thank you for everything." She caught my tone. "What are you going to do?" I checked my weapon and grabbed the specialized equipment I prepared. "I'm going to attend an HOA meeting." The Mountain Pines Community Center looked peaceful in the evening light. Victoria's security team was good. Hidden sniper positions, disguised patrol patterns, innocuous-looking vehicles loaded with tactical gear. But I was better. I approached from their blind spot, using their own security protocols against them. The maintenance uniform and fake ID badge got me through the first checkpoint. The encrypted keycard I'd cloned from their communications got me through the second. Inside, the HOA board members, all Zenith operatives, sat around a conference table, Victoria at the head. Armed guards stood at each exit. On the screen behind them, Oracle's predictions scrolled in real time, showing the approaching digital apocalypse. "Let me guess," I said loudly, stepping into the light. "Quarterly dues are going up." Every weapon in the room turned toward me. Victoria's face showed genuine surprise, then respect. "How did you get in here?" "You forgot the first rule of security," I smiled. "The human element is always the weakest link. Right now, your entire tactical team is responding to multiple breach alerts across the compound, all false, all triggered by your own protocols." I held up the data drive. "You want this? Let's talk. Just us. No weapons, no tricks. Or I trigger a dead man switch that sends everything. Oracle's predictions, Zenith's illegal operations, all of it. To every major news outlet and intelligence agency worldwide." Victoria studied me for a long moment, then nodded to her men. They lowered their weapons. "You know we can't let the encryption collapse happen," she said quietly. "Millions will die in the chaos that follows. I know. That's why I'm here. I placed a drive on the table. Oracle didn't just predict a collapse. It found a solution, but it needs something only I have. The classified quantum algorithms I helped develop. The ones in my head. Understanding dawned in Victoria's eyes. You're offering to help. On my terms. Starting with the dissolution of this HOA and the return of all seized properties. No more hidden agendas. No more private armies masquerading as community organizations. The distant wail of sirens grew louder. Right on schedule. That's the FBI, I continued. They have enough evidence to bury Zenith 10 times over. But if you work with me legitimately, transparently, we can save a lot more than property values. Victoria looked at the predictions still scrolling behind her, then back at me. She knew she was out of options. Stand down, she ordered her men. All of you, as federal agents flooded the room. I felt the weight of the past few days lifting. The property dispute that had started this was over, but a bigger fight was just beginning. We had 40 hours to prevent a global catastrophe, and success would require enemies becoming allies. Sometimes the greatest threats don't come from spike strips or gunmen, but from the future itself. And sometimes the best defense isn't a fence or a security system. It's knowing when to turn an enemy into a friend.